بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين ورحمة للعالمين. وصلى الله على آله الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أوصيكم عباد الله ونفسي بتقوى الله. In today's khutbah, I would like to begin by talking about the outbreak of the coronavirus in China, which has created anxiety all over the world. And these viruses are basically, transmitted between animal and people. And perhaps, these are the moments we need to look at some of the simple Islamic guidelines. When we talk about the food and drink, what is halal, what is haram, there are implications there. And also when we talk about some of the simple rulings that we have as far as, personal hygiene on a daily basis is concerned. Because there are certain things that we do from childhood we have been taught that this is part of, Islamic akhlaq and behavior, and this is how you should do, which are good. But sometimes we do not appreciate that until we see the world doing the same thing. Then we say, oh, I've been doing this from my childhood. It was about in the last 2 decades, there have been different reports that we see from different schools in Canada as well as in US, where they instituted this policy where the students were actually asked to wash their hands 4 or 5 times during the daytime when they are in the school. And this actually had an impact on reducing abstinence and their absence from the school because of their illness. For example, if you look at the study which looked at 305 children in Detroit, they found that the youngster who washed their hands 4 or 5 times a day had 25% fewer sick days due to illness and 51% fewer days lost because of, stomach upset. Schools in Ohio, Delaware, Tennessee, California, they also actually talked about this issue of hand washing, resulting in 51% less, absenteeism. And this is, we come to realize that, a Muslim, even he or she does not consciously, do this thing, just by the fact that they had to do wudu 3 to 5 times a day. They go through this process. And this is where we come to realize that, some of these rituals are not just rituals. They have impact in our daily lives. Especially if you look at the ahadith that we have on this issue about washing hands before and after eating. The problem is these days we are so much, used to spoon and forks that we don't really think about it. But even then, if we just talk about this akhlaq which has come from the Ma'sumin, just 3 or 4 ahadith on this issue. One is beginning from the Prophet of Islam, where he says, Ya Ali, inna al-wudu qabla al-ta'am wa ba'dahu shifa'un fil jasad wa yumnun fil rizq. He says that, O Ali, doing wudu before the food and after the food. Now here, let me explain this. There are actually 4 or 5 hadiths of this type where the word wudu has been used. But our 6th Imam, in his conversation with Hisham, he says, وَالْوُضُوء هَا هُنَا غَسْلُ الْيَدَيْنِ قَبْلَ الطَّعَامِ وَبَعْدُهُ. The word wudu here doesn't refer to the ritual wudu. It actually means washing the hands before and after food. And so the Prophet says to Ali, Ya Ali, inna al-wudu qabla al-ta'am wal ba'duhu, washing hands before and after food, shifa'un fil jasad. This gives, health, and it's a healing for the body. وَيَمُنُّ فِي الرِّزْقِ. And on a different level, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, blesses the individual as far as their sustenance is concerned by this simple act. Ali himself, he says, مَنْ عَرَادَ أَنْ يَكْثُرُ خَيْرَ بَيْتِهِ فَلَيَقْصِلْ يَدَهُ قَبْلَ الْأَكْلِ. If a person would like to see blessings in his house, that they are increased, then he should wash his hand before, food. Abu Hamza Thumali, going to the fifth Imam, a very famous companion of the Imam, of the fourth and fifth Imam, he says, Ya Abu Hamza, al-wudu qabla al-ta'am wa ba'duhu yudhiban al-faqr. Washing hands before and after food actually eliminates poverty from the person. Abu Hamza was surprised. بِعَبِي وَأُمِّي يَذْهَبُونَ بِالْفَقْرِ. They basically, melt away the poverty of the person. Imam said, yes, this is what they do. Abu Auf al-Bajali, of course, remember some of these statements are conditional. It doesn't mean you just do this and don't do anything else. You still have to do your part. As we say, you do your dawa and then you also do your dua. It's not just dua, neither is only dawa, both goes hand in hand. Abu Auf al-Bajali is quoting the sixth Imam who says, يقول الوضوء قبل الطعام والبعد وبعده يزيدان في الرزق. Again, going back to the statement of the Prophet, that washing hands increases the sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to the person. And so these are very simple things. Probably I don't need to even talk about it, but I'm talking about it because sometimes we take things for granted, and this is where we have to look at it. The whole issue these days, whether do you use the mask? You look at the reports and the discussions about the coronavirus. It's not really the mask which is the main thing. It is more the issue of, the hand and washing of the hand, which has been emphasized again and again and again. And this is where, if you look at Will Durant, a famous historian, who wrote this book known as The Story of Civilization, in volume 4, which deals with the Muslim civilization, he actually compares the Christian Europe of those days, especially when we talk about the Middle Ages, with the Ottoman Empire and a Muslim civilization, where he says, cleanliness in the Middle Ages was not next to godliness. Early Christians had denounced the Roman baths as well of perversion and promiscuity, and its general disapproval of the body had put no premium on hygiene. Later on, when he talks about the Muslim civilization, referring more to the Ottoman Empire, he says, in Islam, cleanliness was really next to godliness. An-nidafatu min al-iman. We have a hadith that, cleanliness is actually part of our iman and our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we talk about, whether it's cleaning, washing the hands, or the wudu itself, whether you do 3 or 5 times a day, remember it's not only the physical part of it. It also has a spiritual dimension to it, especially if you look at the du'as which are there, recommended when you are doing the wudu. And if you look at the meanings there, again, the problem is sometimes we just memorize the du'as without looking at the meaning. When you know the meaning, then it becomes more powerful. It has an impact on you. When you are washing, for example, your face, the dua says that Allah, on the day of Qiyamah, when some faces will become graceful and some faces would be made disgraceful, O Allah, bayyiz wajhi. make my face graceful. And then when you put the water and wash your right hand, the dua says that Allah on that day of Qiyamah, it's all reminding us of the day of Qiyamah in a way, that when the record of my deeds, the scroll of deeds are given to me, oh Allah, give it to me in my right hand. Ashab al-Yameen wa Ashab al-Shimal, the Quran talks about it, the people of the right hand and the left hand. This is, those will be given their books, the Name Amal in right hand, that will be an indication that they are okay. Those will be given in their left hand, this will be an indication that there is a problem. Of course, here right and left is not the, Parliament of Paris after the revolution there. No, it's not a right and left in the political sense, but this is more Ashab al-Yameen in the sense of those who will get their deeds, the record of their deeds in the right hand. And then we go into the issue of masa, even the dua that you recite at that time, where you say, oh Allah, cover me, because this is the top of your body. Oh Allah, cover me with your forgiveness and your mercy. When you do the masa of your feet, there you pray that Allah, give thibat to my qadam. Make my feet firm on that day when I go through this bridge known as Pul Sirat. And don't make it, the feet which would be shaky at that time. So even these rituals that we have, there is also a spiritual dimension to it, provided we think about it, learn the meanings that we say of the du'as. And this is where we'll come to appreciate more the simple, instructions that Islam has given to us about our personal hygiene as well as about spiritual rituals that we have. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase our tawfiqat. إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوبة وهو الغفور الرحيم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف على العباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعمة ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بتوبة ما سلف من ذنوبكم. Just to continue what I mentioned earlier, even the hand sanitizers that you see at the gates, it's not just that we are being murdered and this and that. No, this becomes part of our religious, activity, because we are coming in a public place, meeting many people, and just to make sure that our hands are clean, it becomes part of our religious duty also. I'm not saying this is wajib, but, don't just look at it from the secular point of view. It also has a religious connotation to that. When we look at some of the disasters in the world, we can clearly see that some of the disasters are natural. Part of the nature, we don't have a control on it. But there are other disasters which actually are a result of the actions of the human beings themselves. Whether you talk about the environment and how, the human beings are exploiting the system, Islam says very clearly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this dunya for the human beings and not the human beings for the dunya. But then we have this position as, custodian of the earth. to take care of it in the right way, with moderation, and not out of greed go to an extent of destroying everything just for the comfort of ourselves. And this is where even, modern technology has also become part of this problem, where there is no restraint and no control. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Rum, ayat number 41, talks about this issue where he says, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر, that these calamities and the disasters that you see which appear in the land and the sea, بما كسبت أيدي الناس, this is the result of what the people have done. It is not always, part of the system of the nature. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I allow that to happen, ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا, so that they may taste the result of what they have been doing. This is kind of a warning. لعلهم يرجعون. Perhaps when they see these kinds of man-made disasters, they might reflect and reform themselves. And this is where we see these kinds of events going on. And of course, we have to take physical precautions as far as medicine is concerned. Listen to the advice of those who are the expert in that field. But of course, we have to also seek the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As I said earlier, dawa and dua go hand in hand. It has to be done together. You look at Sayf al-Sajjadiyya. Sometimes people become very worried. What do we do? Very simple. You have this very famous and beautiful book known as Sayf al-Sajjadiyya of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam. It's not a small book, it's not a booklet, it's not a pamphlet. And I said many times, I'm not even asking you to read the whole book. The least that I'm asking you is go and look at the table of contents. At least you know what is in this book. So when the time comes, it will click in your mind, okay, I saw something in the list. Then you go and look for that dua and recite. Dua number 15 of Sayf al-Sajjadiyya is about this situation of illness and sickness. And you will see in the introductory part of that dua, very beautifully Imam guides us how to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From both angles of illness and sickness, whether this is for my good or there is something that I can be helped by you. Both elements are there. And there is praise for both situations. And at the end, there is this dua that, oh Allah, get me out of this illness. Let me taste the sweetness of well-being. Let me taste the coolness of safety, and then it goes on. And of course, as normal Imam in all the du'as, interjects the salawat on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad as a way of wasila. Salawat upon the Iqbal. These days, because we see quite a lot, inquiries about this issue of dua, what should we, recite when this virus like this are spreading around the world? One of the duas which is very famous among the Shias and also many, many Sunnis, which came to mind, although I have not yet been able to find the origin of that, it's just 2 lines, sounds like poetry. It's also very famous among the Sunnis, where it says, لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوبا الحاطمة. I'm sure some of you remember it, huh? That I have 5, or I believe in 5, through whom I extinguish the heat of crushing disease. Al-Mustafa wal-Murtaza wa-Ibnahuma wal-Fatima. This li khamsatun refers to al-Mustafa, al-Murtaza, wa ibnahuma wal-Fatima. And this is not only common among Shias, this is, There was a time when Wahhabi and Salafi groups in Indonesia became very active, and they started targeting some of the Shia personalities who were also moving gradually into the political field. And this is late 90s when the former Indonesian President Abdurrahman Wahid, who actually started speaking in favor of the Shia minority, because this Salafi group was pushing an agenda of saying that this Shia should be declared as non-Muslim minority. And President Abdurrahman Wahid at that time, he was a Sunni, but he came out and said, this is not acceptable. They are Muslims like us. And in one of the lectures, he responds to those Salafis by saying that you cannot accuse me, because they were saying you also become a Shia. He said, I'm not a Shia. He says, look at the prevailing law of Ahlul Bayt among the Sunnis of Indonesia. He says, in particular, this dua that every Sunni in Indonesia remembers, and this is where he recited, لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاطمة المصطفى والمرتضى وابناهما والفاطمة. صلوات. So yes, whatever is required as far as advice from the medical experts are concerned is very important. It should be done, and but of course our du'as are there, and for us, Panjatan are the wasila for the acceptance of our du'a. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة النساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى سيد شباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان ماحي آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أمنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فر البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرج وسحل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.